Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Birch, and welcome to another A Health Detective podcast. Today, I'm delighted to introduce you to Sarah Grace. And Sarah was introduced to me through Anna Leyburn, who you've all heard a few times. And Anna and I have talked in quite a bit of detail about trauma. And this is an area that Sarah works in. But she's also a paramedic and has an extensive understanding of medicine and a background in health. And today I'm really interested in talking about the emotional connection with our health and why it's so important that we do actually deal with our emotions when we're wanting to take care of ourselves and get better. Sarah, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, Susan. It's delightful to be here. And hello, everyone.
So wonderful to have you here. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about yourself? You're a licensed paramedic for 20 years. You ran a 911 emergency department. You've seen all there is to see of life and death and in between.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that, and then why you got into the energy, emotional aspects of health.
Great question. And so my journey to becoming a paramedic was in part just my journey of self-discovery. I didn't set out when I was very young to become a paramedic, but over time, working different jobs and kind of intuitively was led and guided towards 911. Come to find out, those of us in EMS, first responders, we tend to be kind of a unique breed. When everyone is running away from something, we actually run towards it. And it makes sense now. The volatility and instability of my childhood, in addition to my real energetic sensitivities, kind of primed me for being able to be comfortable in chaos or, volatility, if you will. And so I was able to just kind of get into those spaces and help a lot of people. So as you said, I did 15 years in 911 in California. And it was just an absolutely incredible experience to be able to witness, the day-to-day life of so many people and be let into their worlds in their inner worst moments, and to see that much death. Because one of my absolute favorite takeaways from the 911 system is none of us truly know how much time we have, and a lot of times we think that we've got forever, or we put healing off, or we put our dreams off, or whatever. But death is as natural as birth, and we're all in the cycle of that. And so being primed and seeing that much death and trauma and was just an incredible journey.
And it does remind us that we do all have a limited time here. And so I feel it's important. I can't tell other people what's important for them, but I feel it's important that we do maximize that time that we have here and taking care of our health, feeling well.
Absolutely.
Being able to have the energy to fulfill all those goals that we have for ourselves.
Absolutely.
So I'll just talk briefly about what I see in my work so that we can then lead into how you're able to help people. So people come to see me, they bring me their blood tests, they bring me all their other kind of testing results. They come with specific health problems. Often weight loss is in there somewhere, but they'll come with, a range of things from high blood pressure, diabetes, having had cardiovascular disease, from psoriasis and skin irritations and rashes, thyroid problems, gut health. There's this whole big range of issues. And I look at blood chemistry and other testing to see if I can help identify a root cause. And the root cause for all our health issues comes back to how our mitochondria function. it always comes back to mitochondria and how we produce energy and how we're able to get rid of the toxic waste, the exhaust that comes from producing that energy. Because if our cells can't produce energy properly, the cells can't do the job, the special job that they have. And if they can't do the job that they have, then we start to get sick. So I look at everything from that perspective, have a good understanding of all the nutrients and processes that are required to have optimal mitochondrial health. But one of the things that I find is that connection between, for example, how we use our minerals and how we burn through our minerals and our adrenal glands. And in the past, we used to talk about adrenal fatigue that's been replaced with more modern HPA axis dysfunction, which is a bit more of a mouthful, but the concept is the same. When we're under stress, and it can be physical, emotional, nutritional stress, our adrenal function changes, and this demand that we have for these nutrients goes up, and then we become very dysregulated. And dealing with that stress can be really difficult and complicated for people. And that's where you step in. That's where you step in as an energy healer, into that space of helping people get to the bottom of these stresses, particularly the emotional stresses, and dealing with those so that then their body has the resources that can go on to heal and be really healthy.
Absolutely. And I love the way that your mind works in looking at the mitochondria, the cellular function, the off-gassing of the toxins, and really looking at it from the root level, the origin level. And I'm trained in the pathophysiology of Western medicine and organ system function and emergency care. And I'm also trained in the holistic world of energy healing or energy medicine. And so we look at the cellular, and then I am trained now to look actually underneath that as well and look at the energy that comprises or makes up those cells. And so we as humans, we have our 7 primary organ systems, obviously cardiac, endocrine, neurologic, inner GI, etc. And we have multiple layers of energy fields. So within those 7 primary organ systems, if you've obviously, you're in the know with being health and like holistic health and energetic health. Everything is vibration, or every cell is a particle made up of vibration. We've heard this, right? Or energy or vibration. Well, in those 7 primary organ systems, if you think about it, each system has a vibrational range of health, if you will. And we also have an emotional vibrational range of health, a mental vibrational range of health, and then it goes beyond that. But the physical, the emotional, and the mental are going to be the 3 primary kind of layers, if you will, of energetic vibration that make up the molecular structure that is our physical body and our reality. So getting to what you're saying, it is all of the systems layer on top of each other like Russian nesting dolls. And one of the primary downfalls of allopathic or Western medicine is that they compartmentalize and look at each, like this organ is this part of the machine and it doesn't have anything to do. Where we know in the holistic world and in more of the energy medicine world, that the quantum physics, everything is connected. Body, mind, soul is connected. And so we understand that the way that you feel or how you're thinking about something directly relates to cortisol levels, hormone levels, stress levels, which then is going to work with the adrenals, like you were talking about. And you just taught me something. Adrenal fatigue and burnout is what I'm familiar with. I didn't know there was a new name. So thank you for that. But how it's all interwoven and interconnected, right? And I think personally where we're at, Susan, as a collective, people all over are just exhausted from what we've been through in the last couple of years. And a lot of them are tired of just being told to take pills. they want to heal, right? And it sounds like your listeners here on your podcast are in the know with the interconnectedness. People are thirsting for something deeper, more meaningful, more soulful, right? Which means something different to everyone, but it's something more nourishing on the energetic or the soulful level. So when we look at the individual and we pay particular attention to their traumas, like how they react emotionally, if they're processing their feelings or if they're not, right? If they're storing them in the field, that's going to manifest physical or mental breakdown ultimately. And then helping people understand that they have a choice, like things can change, right? Just because I've got this all the time in my practice. People come all the time. I've been to every doctor, I've been to every specialist. Nobody can tell me what's wrong, right? But then when we go into the energetics of things, we can get down to what's actually going on with the emotional block within the person, and oftentimes really help them kind of get through what it is that they're navigating.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are very in tune with these ideas and ways of thinking and managing these things. But there are also a lot of us who we've been brought up quite differently. We've been brought up, be tough, like let's suppress those feelings. Let's just get on with it. Life is tough. I know, I've shared a little bit on Anna's podcast about, some of my past history, but you don't really dwell on it. You've just learned to knuckle down under it, suppress it, and then carry on. So how do you invite people who we know have anxiety and a lot of suppressed emotional, I'm not sure of the word, things going on. How do you invite them into a new world without terrifying them and scaring them off and making them think like it's really woo-woo and they're comfortable?
First of all, the invitation is to slow down. Most people are so busy, intentionally busy, so that they can stay distracted, so that they don't feel. And so slowing down will create space so that some of the emotion or some of the exhaustion can start to bubble up to the surface, which is usually what people are trying to avoid. But to heal, we have to go through that and integrate and release a lot of that. So slowing down is one, and really starting to have the courage. And really, I believe, Susan, because I myself, you've been through traumas, Anna's been through traumas, I've been through traumas. Most everyone has, in some fashion, been through something that's traumatized them. And so slowing down and then recognizing that it can be different. We can actually heal or change. We don't always have to continue the way that we're taught. And so that's kind of what I was pointing at, is I think collectively there's just this deep burnout, fatigue, and exhaustion happening. So people are just breaking down left and right because they've been trying to soldier on as they were trained to do. But now we're at this huge breakdown to breakthrough moment where people are starting to say, okay, I don't know, I just can't keep doing what I've been doing, right? Mm-hmm. So slowing down is one, and really having the courage to get honest with yourself about how are you self-medicating. And there's no judgment there. Pretty much everybody's medicating in some capacity with distraction. Busyness is the primary. Technology, always scrolling or being on your phone or doing something, is another. But then we get into the entire spectrum of, drugs, alcohol, pills, like whatever it is. And so really starting with no judgment to just be like, okay, what am I actually doing? Like how many glasses of wine at night, or how many Vicodin, or whatever it is. even over exercising is one. Like, what is it that you're doing to compensate? And then are you willing to start to kind of play with that, relax that a little bit? And if you are, it takes courage again, because once you let go of that anesthetizing, then that's when the emotions can finally start to come up.
It can be quite scary to deal with those emotions. You go through something traumatic when you're younger. I was raped when I was younger, so that was quite traumatic. And it can be quite devastating. You've put those emotions away in a place, you've found a way to manage them so that you can carry on with your life without, sort of being terrified and self-medicating too much with too many bad things. They do sit there sort of in that amygdala, certain things do trigger them, even 40-something years later, something will trigger them. And that sense of helplessness and powerlessness and lack of control comes up. And I think for me, I've probably tried to keep quite tight control because of having lost so much control. And and everyone has their own experiences about that. And I've forgotten my question was going to be when I started this. But I think it's about, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back and bring up all those emotions and talk about what happened and how horrible it was. So how can I deal with that without having to revisit it? Because it's 40-something years ago. I've had a great life. I've learned a lot. But things happen where I'm like, oh, I know that is connected to that experience.
Isn't it's so amazing, the limbic system and how the whole human paradigm is wired is absolutely fascinating to me, because you're obviously educated, intelligent, self-aware, you've done a lot of work, and 40 years later, there's still the trigger, right? Which is the same for me. I've been doing self-work for 25 years, and there's still triggers. So we understand that the trauma or the experience is hardwired into the cells. So that's one important thing for the audience to understand, is trauma actually lives in the body, in the cells. And so we can be busy and doing our things and gloss, but when we have something that triggers, it will inevitably come up. So I actually am a fan of, when we're saying, I hear what you're saying about not wanting to feel it and talk about it a whole bunch and do that whole thing. What I'm going to advocate is that you recognize that typically an emotion lasts about 3 minutes. The bigger emotions can last a little bit longer, but the peak emotional experience on average is around 3 minutes. So if you can remember, are able to catch, say you're triggered and the sense of helplessness comes up, and then that triggers your, fight or flight or the cortisol. 2 things, if you can really quickly remember, feel it coming up, and then just remember, oh, this is an emotional cascade. It's only going to last about 3 minutes. I can ride that, right? And simultaneously, if you're able to just look around, where am I now? I'm safe right now. These are 4 walls. I'm in a room. I'm having a conversation. So it brings the mind back to present moment. What the difference is the energy and the trauma is in the body, in the cells, and that's in the subconscious. So the conscious awareness doesn't have any control over the subconscious awareness. So when the subconscious awareness flares, one of the best things that the mind can do is just bring back into present moment and allow the cascade to move through without trying to suppress or hook onto it. And it crests like a wave and then usually abates or subsides. If we try to push it back down, which is normal, like most of us have or in the past have, that's fine for the moment, but it's like pushing more and more energy down in, and eventually the cascade will be even bigger when it comes out. So just trusting yourself in the moment to allow it to move through while doing your best to stay in the present with it is usually one really good way to ride that release.
And I love that you talked about, the emotion of it lasting such a short time, 3 minutes, because what we often do is we have the emotion, but then the continued emotion is our remembering the emotion. It's not the actual emotion itself. And I think if we can, when I understood that, that made a huge difference to me, because I'm like, okay, I'm remembering the emotion that I felt. I'm not actually feeling that emotion right now, and I'm upset. It's the memory of that emotion that is upsetting me.
Very much so. And being gentle with yourself, there's nothing bad or wrong with this. This is obviously a primary experience in your life. And then those that are listening that have been through things, sometimes I get people coming that have like, man, I've been to so many therapists and it's like, why am I not over this? And all of it's okay. So just go easy, right? And try not to have judgment for yourself, and just be delicate with yourself as you navigate it. But just remembering that ultimately we do have a tremendous amount of power in our thought patterns, how we're choosing. If we want to continue, we're so familiar oftentimes with those emotions that the mind will jump in there and keep it alive, which is kind of what you were just talking about. So if you're able to catch that, oh, look, I'm doing that again, right? With no judgment. Oh, look, I'm doing that again. Maybe I can pull back to present moment, and then maybe even one step beyond that, maybe I can shift to something positive in the present moment, right? There's all different kinds of ways to interrupt that cascade. But for people that are just getting going, just recognizing that they have the choice and recognizing that they're safe to ride through the emotion, it's okay. And as we get more practiced at it, the ability to kind of catch how you hook into that and start to shift that really helps to remove and reprogram that pattern within the cells, so that ultimately I'm not honestly sure if the program ever fully goes away, but what happens is we develop more maturity and less reactivity to it. So I've got some programs within myself from my traumatic upbringing where it's like at this point, and I'm certainly not perfect, but like if I have a trigger, I've got more like awareness and less reactivity. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And I found one of the things that really has helped me a lot is when I get triggered about something, my dogs are something that I'm very protective over, and having gone back to the past and understood why I'm like that, it really helps a lot, because I'm able to go, oh, I'm reacting because of this thing that happened when I was younger with my dog. And so it's this kind of inbuilt, protection about them. And that helps a lot, being able to go, oh, I know why I'm so angry about this, or I know why I'm so upset about this. That's a reaction to that past event. That's actually not the current situation. And that's really helped a lot. And, even little things I find, once you get into the habit of making those connections, even little things start to be much easier to just go with the flow and not get emotionally attached to them.
Right.
So can you talk about how you work with people, what the process is for them?
So I do intuitive healing or energy healing, kind of a specific branch called psychic surgery. And for those of you who are not familiar with this world, there's a lot of different branches or more modalities within the energy healing field. And having my Western background, I'm very practical, analytical. I like things to make sense and kind of have a practical application. And so more of the scientific or quantum physics type stuff is what resonates most with me. I've studied Reiki, shamanism, medical intuition, mediumship, and all different kinds of energy healing. So what I find, the people that find me as a healer, oftentimes have either they've got very severe chronic or acute physical mental or emotional or even spiritual, really, issue, which maybe they've gone to every doctor or tried a bunch of different therapists, or they've been through AA or NA, or, a lot of different programs, and they've tried a lot of different things, but they just haven't been able to find that breakthrough result. So how I navigate is, first we just dialogue, because everybody's got something going on, right? But the way that I'm wired, I can see, hear, and feel energy outside the normal senses since I was a kid. And it's something that it took a long time for me to come to terms with. But ultimately, I was able to use that ability in the 911 system to help a lot of people, especially in the moments of death and transition. And so that's when I decided to get educated. So energy healing is just bringing that. Remember, we were talking about those emotional or the vibrational ranges of health. It's very simple for me to be able to look at somebody and see or feel where the imbalance is within their body, their mind, their emotions, and help them bring that back into balance.
Can you tell us where, do you work online with people?
Yeah, I do. I have an office in Folsom, California, but I do the bulk of my clients are worldwide. And so I do a lot of online meetings with people.
So we'll get all those details from you. So what can people expect from working with you, Sarah? If I was to come and see you, what outcomes could I expect? Is there a realistic expectation, or is that a very fluid thing? Many people, many of my clients, many of the people listening to this podcast will be wanting to improve their health on many, many different levels. And, for me to say to them, okay, you've got some emotional triggers that are affecting your adrenals and your cortisol and going down and affecting your cellular function, to really be able to heal and to be able to make those changes long term, not by gritting your teeth and holding on really tight and saying, I'm not going to eat this, or I'm going to start exercising, but because it's just part of your story to yourself about who you are. You take care of yourself. That is your story to yourself. And to take care of yourself, you do these things naturally. How can what you do help them with that ultimate goal?
What I do is like a total system reset. And so a lot of times people are exhausted and they've tried all these things and they feel like they're stuck in the gutter or down in the ditch, right? So still very much being a paramedic, just an energetic paramedic now. I'll come help kind of pull them out of the ditch and then triage where they're at. I've personally found in my own journey and in, a lot of the people that I've worked with, one of the most powerful aspects of beginning the healing process is the validation. So when somebody can see energetically, like what's actually happening inside you. So when I touch or even just communicate online with somebody like this, I can sense like, oh, okay, so this happened when you were 7 and this is what the bed sheets look like, or whatever the trauma is or was. I can actually see it in the cells oftentimes. Or I can see what the person's day-to-day experience looks like or feels like, or how they're holding up. And so when I'm able to reflect their internal state back to them and give them a safe space, that right there is one of the principal things. Just when people are like, oh, you get it, somebody gets me, because it's not necessarily about the cupcake or what you're eating or what you're not eating. It's about how we're feeling in here, right? And a lot of times people that are overweight and holding weight are actually just trying to protect. They're protecting themselves from something because they don't feel safe, consciously or subconsciously. So when we get in there and we dig around and kind of see like, oh, yes, all of the physical stuff is very important and has to be dealt with what you're talking about, proper hormone levels and all of those things. And beneath that, we look at the energetics of things. Well, validation, right? And then I do what I do, which is the clearing. So it's almost like roto-rooting or pressure washing the person energetically. They just get cleansed, or it's just essentially integrating or offloading a lot of the heaviness that they're stuck in. So they'll feel lighter, they'll feel more spacious, more clear-headed, more like themselves, right? And ultimately, I believe that we're all our own greatest teachers and healers. So my goal is always to get the individual into their own power, believing in their own capability. So clearing them and getting them feeling lighter, feeling more energetic, feeling validated for their experience. And then I'll give them specific protocols or specific, read these books, do these meditations, these herbal supplements, these things tailored for them. Then they feel really empowered, like they can okay, I know what to do now, right? And so that's been my biggest, it's amazing how the whole journey has gone. And it's just an honor and a privilege to have gone from all those 911 critical scenes to now I'm still let into people's innermost worlds. And to me, it's an honor, it's a beautiful thing to be trusted in that way.
It must be great to see people flourish. As a result of the work that you're doing with them. What sort of time frame would people need to work with you? I imagine it's not a come and see you once and then it's all fixed process.
Well, a lot of times I'll see people one time and then I set them up with probably 3 to 6 months worth of curriculum, if you will. It depends. There's a lot of healers that kind of like to get people in longer term programs. I'm still very much a paramedic where I go in, we'll work hard, we'll work fast. We're going to get as much done in a single session as possible. And then I hand the tools to you because ultimately your journey is up to you, right? And then we can do some integration work beyond that. But typically one or maybe a handful of times is how I personally like to work with people, because again, I'm encouraging the person to not get dependent on me or anybody else. I'm encouraging by pulling them out of the ditch and getting them kind of reoriented, then giving them the tools. Hopefully they'll have enough spring in their step to be able to step in and do their work for themselves at that point. But of course I'm always around.
I liked what you said about teaching people to choose their own path, choose their own destiny. People know what feels right for them. What's the right style for them. Is there anything, what can people listening to this do as the next first step?
The next first step for themselves in terms of their healing process, or in terms of?
In terms of their healing process, in terms of understanding whether this is the right kind of pathway for them to follow, whether it's your energy healing or there's so many different kinds of healing out there. But to follow up on something like this or to look deeper into this.
I would really advocate just spending quiet time with yourself. I do a tremendous amount of meditating. Some people are not into meditating. Some people are into prayer. Some people are into journaling. Just spending a bit of quiet time with yourself. Oftentimes in our society, we have so much stimulus coming at us that it can be hard to discern what it is that we as an individual need, because it seems like everywhere we turn, we're being bombarded with what other people think we need. So carving out just even 10 or 20 minutes each day of stillness, quiet time, breathing, writing, something that's going to allow you to connect to yourself. And by connecting to yourself, I just even mean if you're not a meditator, if it's really hard for you to visualize, even just feeling your physical body by tensing your muscles and relaxing them, or, tapping your feet on the floor is going to help to bring your awareness and consciousness down into the present. when we're in the present moment, that creates space for new awareness to come in, as opposed to always being out here projecting into the future or reliving the past. And so I like to keep it simple. I like to keep it practical. I'm not into the super woo stuff. It's just, what can we do that's like, that is kind of down and dirty and easy to apply. And everybody's got 10 or 20 minutes a day that they can like either physically move their body, do some breath work, do some meditation or prayer.
Mm. And I think one of the things that, you know, one of the excuses perhaps we all provide is, you know, we are too busy. So do you help people find a time to carve that into their day?
Yeah, I like to break it up into little bite-sized morsels, because most people don't have time for a big, like, do 2 hours of this a day. A lot of people don't have time for that, So that's why I say, hey, just start with 10, 20 minutes, I mean, even at work, you can go into the bathroom stall, shut the door, listen to some like binaural audio or some grounding meditation or something. We all have that. It's just, are we willing to step up and create that space for ourselves? That's really what it boils down to, because all of us have the same 24-hour time period. We just choose to do different things with it, right?
Yeah, because I guess I'm trying to get to how to encourage people to give this a go. There'll be people out there who are totally on board, who totally understand, have an intuitive sense of the value of this. And then there will be other people who, probably people more like me, or certainly in the past, where we're like, no, we're so much in control. We've got a handle on this. We don't need to do that stuff. What's wrong with me? So yeah, how do you get people just looking for words to encourage people, perhaps like myself, who have that kind of, or who have in the past had that sort of approach to life, to just be able to soften it and give it a go and think that maybe it's worth trying?
Yeah, I think the word soften is it. Because even being like, in the control, like, we're doing that for a reason. Everybody is doing something because it's something, it works, or it's, we feel like we have to protect ourselves. We always have to be in control or be on. That's a learned and patterned experience. There's nothing bad or wrong there at all. And we don't have to do anything differently. And ultimately, how's it working, right? Are you fatigued and you want to feel a little different? Okay, then how is it that we can soften, right? And there's a ton of energy healing there's all that stuff out here to explore. But for those people who are like hesitant, that's why I just say, let's just calm down and create 10 minutes for yourself to kind of soften and see if you can start to notice. If you did 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day for 7 to 10 days, and see if you notice a little bit less cortisol, maybe a little bit less edginess, then kind of you may have more intrigue to start leaning into, right?
Because I would love to see people who really struggle with things like eating disorders and which really do come back to that. It comes back to those internal emotions that we all have, and it's all just a way of trying to get some control back in our lives. So I'd love to see people who say that their goal, I'm sick this way. I mean, this is one of the things I get so much. I'm sick of this weight. I want to get rid of this weight. How often do we start a new year and we say, this is a year for me. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to do all these things to look after myself. I'm going to have lost 10 kg by next Christmas, and next Christmas comes and nothing is different.
Beginning to the process of looking at thought patterns and how we just, again, how it's all interconnected, right? Most humans, so we think 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and over 90% of those thoughts are the same as the day before, and the day before, and the day before. So we kind of live in this little bubble, and a lot of that is filled in by our past history and trauma. And so then we adopt patterns and coping mechanisms and behaviors to, keep this narrative going. And that's the human paradigm. So why change can be hard, if you will, is because it takes courage to let go of our familiar little goggles and kind of, well, I'm used to feeling anxious, or I'm used to feeling whatever. And going into the space of not knowing, that can be really scary to people. And so it's really what we want to do is just start to have conversations about that it's safe, and how kind of this whole thing works with how the mind and the emotions are related to the body, and how there's all these different options to start to choose our thoughts or change our thoughts or catch ourselves when we get down those rabbit holes again and start to shift that. And then all different kinds of ways out here in the holistic world to heal yourself, whether it's physically or mentally or emotionally.
Mm,
Yeah, but it's okay. Like, first off, wherever you are is okay.
yeah. Yeah.
We got to cut ourselves some slack. It's been a pretty intense time to be alive, right? So let's just be okay with where we're at right now. Cut ourselves some slack. Wherever you are is okay. And whatever we're resisting, you've heard what you resist persists. Have you heard that? So whatever you're resisting, this weight, I got to get this weight off, you're actually creating more energy for it to stay.
Mm,
So if we just relax and be like, I don't like this. I don't have to like this, but it is what it is right now. And we just let the guard down, just let ourselves be okay with whatever it is in the moment.
mm,
Then what happens is energetically and subconsciously that it unhooks. And then we can slowly start to shift. But if we're constantly battling something within ourselves, that conflict actually creates an even bigger subconscious programmed response.
Well, that's when
It's
we're
amazing.
kind of white knuckle things, we're setting these goals and then we're trying to
Right.
white knuckle them to get there, to achieve them, rather than I probably prefer the word intention. I try not to use the word, my goals for this year are. I use my intentions.
Mm-hmm.
My intentions are, and then my intentions are, one, that I'm going to take care of myself properly. And when I have that intention and I keep feeding that thought into my head, then I do choose good food, and I do choose to get some rest and recovery, and I do choose to do some exercise, rather than I have to set so many days a week to do this, or
Totally. One of the fastest ways to, you could say, not have somebody do something is by telling them to do it. I think most of us are like that. Like, tell me to do something, I'll be like, oh yeah, no. And I think a lot of us are like that. We have got a little bit of the rebellious, ness in there. And so again, I love what you're saying. It's just let's just let ourselves be with what is for the moment, while simultaneously giving ourselves compassion and empathy for everything that we've been through. And there are times for goals and focus and drive and all of that, but it's not when you're in the process of integrating some emotional trauma or some pain, or really getting to the root of why. Okay, so if we have a binge purge cycle of 10 a day in a bulimic, or we're down to 200 or 500 calories a day in an anorexic, I see these types of clients, or we're relapsing every other week on whatever substance. Okay, so what's under that? Right? That's what I'm interested in. What's under that? There's something that you're doing to help yourself feel safe or in control in some way. And so we want to just, no judgment, not trying to make it go away, not pushing against it, not trying to come over the top of it, but just look at it and let it just be for a moment. And then usually the person will have a big breakdown. So they'll, because once we just stop trying to wag your finger, shame or condemn, that a lot of times out here in the world, it's like, oh, just get on with it, just get over it. And it's like, no, that's that's not what people need when they're wounded and down. Like they just need, a hug really, and to feel like understood. And so if we can just understand what's there, then we can hand them the tools, right? And then they might have the energy to actually start to make some shifts when they feel like they don't have to, or like that it's authentic for them.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting. A couple of things in there. I like what you said about, we don't like being told what to do. And I always joke that I don't like to tell myself, I won't do what I tell myself to do either. I resist that really strongly. And it's something I know I have to not give myself orders, because I won't.
Right. I think
it's crazy.
I think that's human nature. I just do. I think it's part of human nature. We have that defiance. Like, oh yeah, watch this, right?
Yeah, like I'm not going to do what you tell me.
Right.
Do whatever I want. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if we meet them with no judgment, kind of like, okay, like if somebody's telling me, I'm polishing off a full bottle of wine a night, or I'm smoking 2 packs a day, whatever they're doing, like everybody's up to something, or I'm eating a whole gallon of ice cream, whatever it is, everybody's got their thing. No, if you meet them with no judgment, like, oh yeah, okay. Well, what is that doing for you? Like, what are you getting out of it? And meet it with curiosity. A lot of times they're like, what? And then we can start to explore the why. And then we can get into, again, going down to the layers underneath it. And for those of you guys who are listening, who have been dealing with weight, 9 times out of 10, a lot of times when I see in the clientele, people that are really sensitive energetically, they might be really more introverted, they may be empathic, and this is a loud, intense world. And so a lot of times there's this cushion. It's like a subconscious cushion. I see it with people that have been through significant traumas. And I also see it with people that are very sensitive. Okay. And it's okay to be sensitive in this world. That's something else we're not told, right? We're taught to buck up. And that was one of the things with me being a ultra sensitive, like high end of the spectrum sensitive. I've had to learn, how to make this world work for me. Right. And just know if you're carrying that weight, it's okay. There's probably a defensive posturing. It's probably not even a physical thing or the caloric thing, but just know that the more in tune you get with yourself, the more permission you give yourself to be like, okay, as you are, right? Oftentimes I see that weight just start to melt off people. And they're not even really trying, but they're starting to do the emotional process work or the self-forgiveness work. And when you start to give yourself that space internally, then that protective layer, you don't need it anymore. And literally, I've seen people drop a lot of weight, pretty quickly that way.
And I've heard people talk about that, how when they sort of gave it up, they dealt with some of that inner turmoil, or they acknowledged the inner turmoil. And people have told me I haven't done anything different, and I've just lost all this weight. And, they're like,
beautiful.
I'm sick. Is there something wrong with me? And it's like, no, you're actually getting well now. Yeah,
Isn't that beautiful?
It is. It's really beautiful. But you see the same. You see the same in relationships. You see the same with infertility. You see lots of people who suddenly, maybe they'll adopt or foster a child, and then all of a sudden they're able to have their own baby, and there must be some sort of energetic shift. And not that I'm saying that's the only reason that people have fertility problems, but we do see that.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah. And relationships as well. People go, I just gave it up. I stopped worrying about it. And all of a sudden it happens.
And that's a really powerful thing that you just said. When you say, I just gave it up, and then it does shift, that's so on point. And a lot of people are like, how, but I don't know how to just give it up. How can I possibly just give it up? Because it's something that they've been preoccupied with for so long. For me, I'll just give you my personal take on that, my personal experience. I just got so sick and tired of my own story around whatever. I just got so sick and tired of it that I just finally was like, yeah, whatever. And so when we get sick and tired enough of our own stuff and our own story and our own thing, that's usually when we're willing to make a shift there. So that's one good way for your listeners, if you're thinking about like, well, okay, I want to do that, but how? It's like that's one good way.
Yeah. Now, I like what you said there. I find that sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'm just so over sick of thinking about this. Give it up,
Yeah, let's do something different. Let's go outside, or let's go for a bike ride, or let's do something, and then we shift it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Any last thoughts, Sarah? Any final thoughts for people?
Just, again, wherever you are is okay. Cut yourself some slack. Slow down, take 10-20 minutes a day, and get to the point, hopefully, where you can just let things go a little bit more easily. That'll create enough space and energetic shift for you to be able to bring some good stuff in. But I'm just really appreciative of you, Susan, and thank you for, creating this space and having this program available. It's very important work that you're doing, and I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure. It's been lovely to get to meet you and chat to you a couple of times. And can you tell people where they can find you, please?
Yeah, so my website is sarahkgrace.com, Sarah with an H, so SARAHKGRACE.com, sarahkgrace.com. You can find all my books and all my meditations and things there. And actually, if you want to continue the conversation or reach out to me, I do the one-on-one sessions. And I also have a membership. It's a sweet little community of like-minded people who are integrating trauma and energetically sensitive and looking to thrive. So all that information's on the website.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, it's been a real pleasure meeting you, and I hope people will go and look you up and follow up on the work that you're doing, and get some help and guidance and support through this process.
Thank you, Susan.